Welcome to Talking Grit, a Detroit Lions podcast. Powered by the Monroe County Reporters. Here are your hosts, Jason Harwood and Jacob Litton.
Welcome everybody back to an episode of Talking Grit. I'm Jason Harwood, and with me is Jacob Litton. We're live on YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Of course, you can always find us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcasts. The first week of free agency is in the books. The Lions and the league in general made a ton of moves, spent a lot of cash. We'll get into it right here. But first, Jacob, we all want to know, how was your weekend?
Hey, weekend went good. Relaxing for me. How about you?
Good, man. Michigan won the Big Ten title, which was surprising and fun. I worked all weekend, but it was a pretty good weekend for being at work. Are you not wearing a hat today to make me feel jealous of your hair?
Yeah. No, I just came from baseball practice. I had the Erie Mason hat on.
Okay.
It's like, what? You know what? I'm just going to lose that. I'll ditch the hat. I don't have my Lions hat on, so.
All right.
Just make Jason look at my luscious head of hair for this next hour.
If we were during the season, you weren't wearing your Lions hat, I'd definitely call a jinx on you or something like that.
No.
Yeah. So I got to tell you, man, today was a tough day of work. You know, you were there, call offs, you know how it goes. But what got me through is knowing we're going to talk about some Lions football, right? So I was excited about that.
Helped you power through the day. Not enough to get out on time.
Yeah. No. We're not going to tease any guest names, but everyone needs to pay attention because in the next few weeks, we're going to have some good guests on. We're really gearing up for this offseason, getting ready for the draft that's coming up soon. But first, let's talk about free agency, Jacob. I know last week we had already, we came on after the DJ Reed signing, so we talked a little bit about that. Just kind of go through all the names that the Lions have re-signed. Then I got some questions for you after we go through that. So, you want to listen to all the...
You want to just do the re-signs or just all of our free agents to this point?
I think everyone that we either re-signed or added. So
yeah.
We'll
just run down the list real quick, and then we'll go in depth with some of the guys that we didn't already talk about last week.
Yeah.
Okay, so players added or retained. DJ Reed, Derek Barnes, Levi Onwuzurike, who obviously after last time I talked about the importance of him, so plenty more to say about him. Roy Lopez, another defensive lineman. Grant Stewart, Tim Patrick, good to get him back. Quarterback Kyle Allen. More to come about that. Tight end Kenny Yoba. Craig Reynolds is back. Dan Skipper, Miles Adams, Anthony Pittman, Ezekiel Turner, Maurice Norris.
Yep,
Maurice Norris.
Yeah, that's kind of the list of who we got. Either is coming back or we've added to the team, but we did lose some players, right? Zeitler was one that we're definitely going to talk about today. He signed a 1-year deal with the Titans. Maurice Alexander followed his buddy Ben Johnson over to the Bears, so that was kind of interesting. James Mitchell signed with the Panthers. Kendall Vildor signed with the Bucks. I definitely want to touch on that later on. And I know this one makes you sad, Jacob. Ifeatu Melifonwu signed with the Dolphins.
It does make me sad. We'll dive into that a little more too, but I wanted Iffy back.
Has your son thrown it in your face yet that he signed with the Dolphins?
No. Nope.
Okay.
He's actually going to reserve that. So I guess he's probably just going to wait and see, if he plays really well, it's going to be in your face. And then if he doesn't play well, he's going to be like this trashy guy from Detroit.
Exactly. All right. That's hilarious.
Real quick though, because Maurice Alexander though, he signed a futures contract with the Bears before Ben Johnson went there, right?
I don't know. I didn't see that, but
I think that Maurice Alexander was one of the first ones that jump ship, and he signed a futures contract elsewhere, as did tight end James Mitchell. So yeah, Ben Johnson maybe followed Maurice Alexander.
Maybe. And
might be onto something
coach.
There.
Yeah, his wide receivers coach followed over there. So Maurice Alexander is going to, have the same coach over there, wide receiver coach, and, his offensive coordinator is now his head coach. So pretty interesting situation. All right, Jacob. So after the first week, is there a signing that you like the most that we've got here?
It's obvious for me which signing I like the most. And there's some more information that we have to talk about with this one. So let's just get this one the Levi signing. I left off the last episode. It's like, man, that's something I need to happen this week, is I really want to sign Levi, because as this is going on, these other free agents are driving up the price. I already was way off on the dollar value that I was thinking that he was going to get. I said probably 15 to 18 million per year. And then Levi signs a 1 year, $4 million contract. It could be up to 5.5 million with incentives, but that's significantly lower than pretty much what anyone had projected, myself included. So that was the biggest one for me, was getting Levi back, but also getting him back at such a discount. What are your first thoughts about that when you saw the dollar amount?
Yeah, well, we were both at work when the tweet went out that he re-signed with the Lions. Before, my feeling was it was going to be a 2-year deal for $20 million is what I thought that he was going to command. I said 20 to 24. I put out a range. So to get him back at 1 year at $5.5 million seems like a bargain. And I know that he has an injury history that certainly played into it, but I gotta imagine that he had offers higher than that from somewhere else, maybe for 1 million. But I gotta imagine he wanted to come back to Detroit. I just can't imagine that he didn't have an offer. The way defensive line contracts have gone,
right,
especially like the first week of free agency, right? Because this is the time of where everyone it's an overpaid period, and then now we're in kind of like reasonable pay period, and then right around there'll be a second wave after the draft, where teams got to fill some extra
desperation
holes.
Or just the the filler spots. Yeah,
right. But even then, those are all discounted and usually team friendly deals. So to get Levi back at this price is awesome. The thing that I like about Levi, and I assume it's you do too, Jacob, is that his versatility. He could play inside and outside, so he gives you, he can move around that line. And especially with the Aleem McNeil injury, we don't know when he's going to come back, right? So early in the year, we might see him more inside than outside. But when Aleem comes back, you might see Levi in the outside more. So I'm just ecstatic to get him back. I just know that if he comes out and balls out this year, that we're going to be probably going to be hard to get him back for another year, especially at that price.
Right, that's probably what he's banking on. But it just and that's a big reason that you just said too, the versatility when Hutch went down, for him to be able to play outside. It does not make sense to me. He was ranked 64th in interior defensive lineman overall, and he was only the 24th highest paid in this free agency period. He's 27 years old. He played 16 games for us last year. He did have the injury history, but he did play 16 games and was one of the very few Lions that was not injured last year. Important part of the defense for us. I just don't understand why he wasn't able to secure a better contract. Was it just that he wanted to stay in Detroit? Did he not, like the offers elsewhere, the guaranteed money maybe? Or, is this kind of like how we had last year with Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, where it's like, we had unfinished business. Let's just try to run this thing back and see what we have. And if you're in Levi's position, if you play another 16 games, then maybe you are parlaying this into, a $10, $15 million deal.
If Levi comes out and repeats last year, even if, let's say, he doesn't get any better, let's just say he repeats last year, that's going to prove that he has some durability, right? He's played 2 full seasons back to back, and he's a productive player. He's betting on himself with this contract to come out ahead and make a lot of money. Now, he may also be looking at it, hey, I could go to another team and maybe make more for one season, but if I stay with Detroit, we got a chance at the Super Bowl. If we do get there or get deep playoff run and I have a good season, that's more exposure, and teams are going to want that. Teams are going to be like, okay, we can have, we could try to get Levi, and it'll be good. I think Levi's doing a lot of just betting on himself right here.
That's actually great because of the comparison that I have too. So this Treshaun Wharton for the Chiefs, obviously perennial, deep contenders into the playoffs. So he was the one that signed. I think he was the last interior defensive lineman that signed right before Levi. It was probably like the night before. So Treshaun Wharton, 27 years old, same age as Levi, undrafted free agent. He only started in 13 games over his first 5 seasons. So, I mean, it's not like he's putting out too much of a bigger sample size. He signed a deal with the Panthers this offseason, averages $15 million a year, and he got $30 million guaranteed. I believe, I don't have it in front of me, but I think he had more sacks than Levi, but less tackles and less snaps. So, I mean, and these guys are getting paid. It just doesn't make sense for $4 million. I mean, up to 5.5, but I mean, then you got somebody pretty close. I mean, statistically and everything that you're looking at, same age, so that's not a factor. Same number of games. Like, I don't know what kind of magic the Brad Holmes pulled out, or if it's just Levi, like you said, betting on himself or whatever. However they had to get this into existence, I'm extremely happy to have Levi back.
Yeah. I think what Brad Holmes does and what the Lions do is basically, I think they're pretty upfront with everything with their players. So my feeling is they've basically told, this is what we're willing to pay you. You're welcome to go out and get another deal if you want to do that. But we want you back. But this is, the reality is, this is what we're willing to pay you. And I bet you Levi looked around and said, I'd rather come back. I cannot imagine that he didn't have a higher offer somewhere else. I just don't believe that. I don't have any insider information. I don't know anything, but I just don't. The way the market went, I just can't imagine that Levi didn't have anything else on the table that he passed up to stay with the Lions.
Has to.
Yeah. And I don't look at it as like, the Lions are just lowballing their players or whatever. I just feel like they're just upfront and honest with them and just tell them this is what we're going to do.
Who else would you even consider that they've lowballed, though? Or,
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't say
it's
that.
not like we have a history of that or anything. Right. But, like,
No.
This is much lower than what you would think his market is. But it's not like we have some sort of, like, ongoing issue or, the only other one that comes to mind that said he wanted to be here, but said the money, that the contract didn't match up was Jamal Williams.
Yeah. And that's another thing. Well, Jamal Williams probably wishes he would have stayed with the Lions.
True.
It worked out much better for the Lions in this situation. And when free agency happens, it moves fast, right? I mean, you can't just sit there and be like haw around and wait for a player to make a decision. The Lions, Jamal Williams passed on the deal. And it's like, all right, we're going with David Montgomery. Once they sign that, they're not signing Jamal Williams. I think it's a little different with Levi. Just the timing of everything. I think they pretty much just said, here's what we're going to willing to pay you, and you go out and look. And Levi decided, he had enough. He said he hated free agency. I think in his post game that it's a lot of just sitting around waiting. It's kind of like the people that are drafted late, right? On third day draft picks, they just sit around and wait, and you're just waiting for that phone to ring.
Yeah, it's got to be torture.
Got to be. I know we talked about my signing that I liked about Levi was on my list, but DJ Reed, obviously,
right?
To get, I mean, it's another thing, right? Getting the right guy at the right price, right? I mean, it's unbelievable that Brad Holmes has been able to do this. And, we talked about the DJ Reed signing, so we don't need to go too much into that this week. But his press conference, DJ Reed's press conference was a couple days after on Wednesday. And he basically said it was down to the Commanders and to the Lions. He wanted to go to a contender. And that, I mean, it's love hearing that, right?
Right.
I'm never going to get used to it here in Detroit. Someone wanting to come here, but it was very consistent with everybody that talked about wanting to come to Detroit because we do things the right way. And I loved hearing it. I'll never get tired of hearing that.
Absolutely. Those are actually the other two signings I liked. And it wasn't even that necessarily, their impact on the football field, but they just, these guys are going to play Detroit Lions football. They had Grant Stewart, the linebacker from the Colts, and then Roy Lopez, the other defensive lineman. If you haven't had a chance to check out any of their, press conference, they both had some memorable quotes. They both, you could just tell from them talking, they want to be here. They have the right attitude, and like you said, Grant said, he wanted to be with a contender, so he wanted to come here. He loves to work hard. He wants to earn it. He also, coming from the Colts, he had to play against us last year. And he said, he was like, it's grit. You can tell mid-game going against them. That's what they're about. And it was an easy decision. He wanted to come here.
Yeah. I liked man, I listened to his press conference just on the way here. It's the last one I hadn't listened to. I just on the drive home, I put it on, and man, it got me fired up, ready for football right now.
Yeah, right.
It was awesome the way he was talking about, the Lions in general. He's like, basically his one quote, I'll paraphrase it because I won't say it exactly, but something like, if you're a 10-year vet looking to just play out your years, this is not the place to go because they're going to make you work. And I also like that he said that he wanted to go to a place that it wasn't an easy path to the field. He wanted to get better. I mean, it's awesome to hear that, right? Wants to go to a contender, and he wants to go to a place where he knows he's going to get better. And he reached out to like Pat O'Connor. He mentioned him, like, and basically found out like, is what I'm perceiving real? And it sounds like, it is. So it's great to hear that. It's one thing that I'm very confident, as long as Dan Campbell's running the ship, we're gonna, we're going to have that same attitude throughout the whole building. And that's what really has got us where we're at, like as an organization. And even when Dan Campbell makes hires like in coaching that don't work out, he's quick to move on. He's quick to address that and then get the right people in here. You think of Anthony Lynn the first year, Aubrey Pleasant the second year, just either they're not doing things the Lions way and they're out. And
we have confidence in him and Brad getting the right people in here, doing things the Lions way.
Yes.
The other guy, a big one too, Roy Lopez. I mean, he did, the same thing. Comes in there, he's like, the whole country knows what the Detroit Lions stand for. And that was cool to hear, right?
Yeah.
They do want to come here. And even, obviously, they're not like high-level free agents, but they are Detroit Lions football players. You could tell that right away from the press conference. They're not afraid of the competition. They're not afraid of the work. Roy Lopez had a Dan Campbell level quote too. I don't know if you saw. He said, "I'm going to grind it out to the very end till the clock hits 0, and maybe one more second after that."
Yes.
Listen to that. You're like, yes.
Hand clap.
This
afterwards. Guy. I was like that. I mean, if that quote doesn't describe Detroit Lions football, I don't know what does. He talked about, he had an Amon-Ra moment too. He's a state champion wrestler. Roy Lopez is. He lost to 3 guys, and he, was asked about it. He's like, "Oh, I know everything about those guys. I know their social security number. I know everything about them." Just shades of Amon-Ra. And Roy said that he went out and beat anyone that's beat him. He went back and beat like him. He beat him in another match. So I like his attitude. The numbers came out on his contract today. It's he's got a lot of incentives. It's basically a 1 year, like $3.5 million guaranteed, can go up to $4.65 million. I like the idea of him as a player, just giving DJ Reader, a little more spell and make him so that because it seems like those 2 players are, I'm not saying interchangeable, but they're going to play the same position. So I think the Lions' idea is, get Roy out there and spell DJ Reader, and it'd be nice to have 2 big guys that can take up 2 offensive linemen. And I think they're setting it up. Kelvin Shepard's setting it up so his linebackers can work, is the way I see it. Just clog up that offensive line, and, he's going to do his old linebacker room right and let them clean out the mess.
Create some pressure.
Exactly. So, it'll be interesting to see how he plays. I mean, he doesn't have a lot of rush. It doesn't seem like he has a little bit QB rush, but it doesn't seem to be his main part of the game. But a couple of those highlights, man, he shot a gap and was able to stop some runs in the backfield. I did like that. He's a huge guy. I love the cowboy hat. It's unique, and he's probably
him and
common
Rodrigo
down in Arizona, but it's up in Michigan, we're not wearing cowboy hats that much.
No, we are not.
I want to give a shout out to Cody. Hey, Cody, what's up, man?
All right, Cody.
Yeah, thanks for checking us out. It's our boy Cody. He's always supporting us. So met up with him at Ford Field last year. It was great to see him. Tim Patrick's back. We got to touch on Tim Patrick, right? That was great to have him back.
Yes, that was somebody else. It's like, we knew the dollar amount was not going to be very high to try to get him back, and to have to try to do what we did with Josh Reynolds and, it took how long to get Tim Patrick in here and then get him acclimated and everything like that. Let's not do that again. We already know he knows the offense. Let's just keep the ball rolling there. And if we want more wide receiver help, maybe we get somebody in the draft or something like that. But as far as that red zone, that third down target that we need, he really came onto that role. And I think he's going to improve on that again next year.
Yeah, I like that he's going to be with us for the full off season this year, as opposed to last year. He came after training camp and everything, and we got signed him after the cuts because he'll probably have some off season training with Jared Goff. Jared Goff always seems to get together with his wide receivers. They'll get, he'll be. I expect Tim Patrick to be even more productive than last year because it took him a few weeks to get in there. It definitely took him most of the season to get his first touchdown, but then he seemed to be on a roll after that, and I'm hoping that he just starts out the season like that because having a big, tall wide receiver like that is, quarterback's best friend.
Right. And we know Goff likes to target them.
Yes, exactly. Skipper's back, which he signed, I think, during our podcast last week. So that's cool to have him back.
That was the breaking news that I had, right?
Yeah, it was. It was. So, all right. So let's go. Was there any signings that, or, people that signed somewhere else that you think the Lions missed out on, or you got you scratching your head a little bit?
Real quick, just the one that we missed out on, I would say, is just the Iffy thing. And not necessarily that we missed out, but, he was on the rookie contract with us, and he only got a 1-year, $3 million contract with the Dolphins. And it's not like we're set at safety. It's not like now, we don't need him. We don't need anybody. Now we do need another safety. And now I don't know if that's something that we sign, draft, or what are we doing there. But, do you think, in your opinion, do you think we were outbid for Iffy? Did you think we just were ready to move on because of the injury history? Or do you think this is strictly just Iffy wanting to say, look, I'm given a chance to start here. A starting position is definitely not available for me in Detroit.
I think that's it. I'm hoping that's it with Iffy. I don't think it has anything to do with the competition or anything like that, but it's a matter of you're going to give me an opportunity to play because he's not going to start ahead of Branch or Kirby at this point. But the Lions probably also, the way they've been running these contracts, they were probably going to offer him, a veteran minimum with per game bonus game checks is how I would run it with Iffy, right? You never know if he's going to be on the field or not. So that's the way I kind of play it. And I'm betting that's the way the Lions did. I would love to have Iffy on this field because we have a need at safety. But also part of me is like, okay, we signed him, but can we count on him? And I don't know that we can.
That's just right because of the injury history. Yeah.
And so, I can get it either way. I'm happy for him. I hope he does well, even though it is for the Dolphins.
Right. No, absolutely. Hopefully JJ can hang that one over my head because he's playing well. But that was just the quick one. I guess the biggest head scratcher that I had was the signing of Kyle Allen, the quarterback. That was the one that really kind of made me think, we have Hendon Hooker, we have Jake Fromm behind Goff right now. Fromm looked decent in the offseason. Hooker's obviously shown some flashes. They're saying, Hooker is the backup. So why did we need Kyle Allen? I don't think the contract details are out yet. So that's kind of the concerning thing to me is like, okay, if it's league minimum, he doesn't really have guarantees. Maybe this is a competition between him and Fromm. Maybe this is one of those things where it's like Kyle Allen started 19 games over 7 seasons. So he's been around. He does have experience. Maybe this is more so, his game prep. Is he going to be able to help Goff with the preparation? Is he going to be able to, lead the practice squad, I guess? Is that what we're looking at here? But, if you give him guaranteed money and you're telling him that he has a shot at being the backup, then what are we even doing with Hendon Hooker anymore? Right? Hooker's on the team this year and next year, right? Then he's a free agent after that. Yep. And he's going to be looking for an opportunity to play. So are we hoping that he's developed enough that he's going to be challenging Goff for that starting spot? It certainly doesn't look that way. So then if we're bringing on other guys, then why don't we explore a trade and try to get something out of Hendon right now? Not that I want to do that, but something like this just makes you kind of question those things. Like what's the game plan then?
I look at this as just the Lions bring competition into the room. They do it with every every position group out there. And that's all I view this as. I don't think it's a sign on anything on Hendon Hooker. If anything, it's like, all right, Jake Fromm, you're not going to come in here and just be the third quarterback. We're going to, we'll have someone with experience in there trying to push both Hendon and Jake. And then what can Kyle come in and do what we need for Goff? Has nothing to do with Goff. I mean, Goff is the starter, no questions, whatever. I don't think it has even much to do with Hendon Hooker. I think it's a matter of having another person in there that could throw and, pushing Fromm ahead. And then also just letting Hendon know you can't rest back because, we got a guy with, a veteran with some experience that we could put in there. I don't
But that's not somebody that you give a roster spot to, though.
No.
So why are you signing a quarterback this early on in free agency? And if you're Kyle Allen, what did we give you, or what entices you about Detroit right now if there's no guarantee to come here?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
there's more to come based on when this contract gets released, but
yes. I think but I don't think it's good. If there's guaranteed money, like a decent size, then we could start talking. Until I see the money, I'm on the firm belief that the Lions are going to be able to cut him. I think it's going to be a veteran's minimum contract. It's probably with little other than like a signing bonus at, $250,000 signing bonus guaranteed or something like that. If it's more than anything like that, then we'll probably have something to talk about. But
it just doesn't make sense to me for Kyle Allen either. Like, his free agency just started. You don't even know what teams are dealing with. If you're not getting guaranteed money and you're not getting a spot at a backup job, why are you signing right now?
Maybe he was just happy that he was able to get anything, and the first thing that come up, he did. So I don't know. I'm not sure. It'll be interesting to come out. I'm not freaking out like
we'll see.
I'm not freaking out like a lot of people are on Twitter.
Well, yeah. As soon as that happened, people are like, "Oh no, Hendon Hooker's gone."
Well, I mean, a lot of people.
They've done that for every single move we've made,
thing,
though.
Right? They went back and they're like, "Oh, I thought Hendon was the guy." Well, no, they weren't going to bring Hendon Hooker, who's had no. I mean, other than some mop-up duty, has had no meaningful snaps in the NFL, and then you're going to expect him to come in a divisional playoff game and be the guy. No, I'd rather have. I was happy they have Teddy there, and Teddy has a close relationship with Dan Campbell. They felt comfortable with him, and it's a good thing because Teddy did have to come into that game, and we still scored on that drive, even though it was a JMO, reverse that he took to the house.
Still a scoring drive.
Exactly. The signing that I don't want to say scratching my head, but something I am disappointed in is Kendall Vildor. I know, and I think you and I kind of disagree on this, but
we do.
Don't dislike Vildor. I know that he's the whole San Francisco thing. That's one thing. For CB4 is what he really is. I think that he's all right. He had a bad Colts game, but after that he played good enough for a CB4 for me. And we need some cornerback depth. I would have liked to have Vildor back.
He's not great against the run. His coverage was not the best. There's just too many, and it sucks because I think that I liked Vildor, what he was about. I liked him as a person and everything like that. The product on the field was not good enough, and it just kind of seemed, maybe this is not his fault either, like you said, cornerback 4, but time and time again, we end up having to lean on this person. Maybe we are just asking too much out of him, but very few times, when we had to call his number, was he able to fully respond and, perform up to speed. He did probably later in the second half of last season, play better. The Colts game was almost the rock bottom where it was just, and we talked about this too. I said, like, as soon as, injuries and things are happening, if we have to move Vildor to the outside, I'm not comfortable with Vildor being on the outside. And he didn't get as many snaps there, after that game. I think it was time to move on from Vildor, especially, I don't know if you saw his contract, but I mean, they almost fully guaranteed his, what was it? Let's see. Vildor got a 1 year, $1.3 million contract with the Buccaneers, $1.1 million guaranteed. So his guarantee with the Buccaneers, I think, equaled his dollar amount, his whole contract with incentives and everything with us. And like I said, I don't dislike Vildor. Hopefully he plays well. But you also have no problem talking about Cam Sutton getting burnt.
Yeah. Well, I think for CB4, he's what you need. You don't expect him to come in and be starter level material, but I do expect him to come in and be able to, have meaningful stats. And I think that he's done that enough. I know the San Francisco thing, some Lions fans will never get over that. It wouldn't have been so.
What's ironic is that was pretty good
Yeah.
coverage in that play. I mean, obviously just an unfortunate bounce.
Well, I mean,
the coverage actually was not bad on that one particular play.
Just bounce around, right?
Or the Bears game where the
Yeah,
pass interference, the bad pass interference call, like that.
100%.
Right. No, that was good coverage. I'm not going to say that he was terrible and that he doesn't belong in the league or anything like that. No. And I hope he plays well for the Buccaneers.
Yeah. So, another thing I'm going to Twitter, this offseason's been weird, right? Because like last year it seemed like we were all on the same page, the Lions are moving forward. This season, it seems like there are a lot of Debbie Downers. And I mean, I wasn't on Twitter this time last year. Is this a different offseason to you than it was last year as far as like the Twitterverse and social media?
Twitter is just filled with Debbie Downers. There's all sorts of negativity on, no matter what happens, somebody's got to hate on it.
It's just, I quote that I saw on there was like, someone's like, I'm just tired of us, re-signing our own players. We want to go outside the organization. So do you have any problem with what the Lions like do in regards to that?
That same person would have flipped a lid if we let Amon-Ra walk. Like what, that's just people being negative. I mean, that's ideally how you would run the team, right? Ideally, you draft good players, you keep your good players, you keep your core together.
I think
that's kind of, the winning recipe. That's how you win games. You keep the core together, you keep that continuity.
I look at it as it's a privilege to be able to sign your players. I mean, you know what they're about, right? So like exactly what you're getting. When you get a free agent, you may have a little bit of idea, but you never had them in the building. You don't know what kind of worker they are. You don't know how they interact with other teammates and coaches. Like, are they going to be a guy that shows up late to meetings? You could ask around and try to find that information, but until they get in the building, you don't know. With Amon-Ra, all our other players that we've, extended, exactly what type of player they are.
Exactly. And, that's a reason that there's not, we already said, like, you don't win the Super Bowl in the offseason. There's a reason that most of the time you look at the highest spenders in the offseason, that's not, those aren't even always playoff teams. And it's because, you're spending all this money on all these guys, you're bringing all of them in. You don't know who's going to play at the same level that they played at that other place, who is a scheme fit, who, some people do not have the work ethic necessarily anymore when they sign these big contracts. You just don't know what you have. You want to re-sign your own guys. And then, of course, you're looking in free agency. You add some other pieces. You sign, a handful of players. Ideally, you would not go into free agency and sign 6 new starters. Chances are those guys are not all going to mesh well. You're not going to instantly have success. But you are going to instantly feel the pain of having no cap room.
Yeah. And I also look at it, people that get mad, like that we're not signing, doing what the Vikings are doing and signing all these people on the outside was if, say Amon-Ra wasn't on our team, say Aleem McNeil wasn't on our team, and we went out and signed those guys to big contracts, would you be happy? Be like, oh man, we got Aleem, oh, we got Amon-Ra. You'd be happy that we brought those guys in, and, it just so happened that Brad Holmes is a very good drafter. And so we have those players in-house. So I'd much rather sign guys that we know their work ethic and know what type of player they are. We know that they could fit with our offense, fit with our defense. I'd rather have that guy. So, for people that are just mad that we're not out spending all this money, you look at the teams that are spending all this money, it's because they didn't draft well. The Patriots, Panthers, all those teams that just laid out huge contracts, they didn't have any players to resign because, they just haven't been drafting well.
Great point. I mean, some of that too is just people wanting fresh faces, right? You want to see new guys here. You want new superstars here, which I get that. But then to be angry about having the same guys on the team year in, year out, like, well, that's why you want to have a good team year in, year out.
I think a lot of people just kind of say, well, we didn't win the Super Bowl last year, and now we're going to just kind of do it again with mostly the same guys. And I'd have 2 arguments against that. Number one, it's, not to go through the injury thing again, but we're missing like most of our defense. So it's like getting all those guys back. That's like them signing contracts with us this year. And number two, there's a fair amount of luck that goes in with winning a Super Bowl. And some of it goes injuries, some of it who's you're playing, some of it when you're playing. All that goes into it. And I know Dan Campbell's going to get the best out of his players. If you look at how we've drafted and all the players that we've gained, they get better year to year, right? So I don't look at it as like these players are going to have a regression. I look at it as a player like Amon Rock. He as good as he is, he just gets better every year. Aiden Hutchinson, he had a good rookie year, good sophomore year, and then last year it looked like he's going to be defensive player of the year. If he doesn't get injured, he leads the league in sacks. He's probably defensive player of the year. And you're hoping to see that, when our good players get great and then even, higher than great, they become all pros. I don't mind bringing those players back because there isn't like the attitude that our players have is, like, oh, I got the big contract, I can rest. They don't look at it that way. It's like, I got the big contract, I got something to prove, and I'm going to prove it that I'm worth this money.
Yeah, it's the opposite of Ndamukong Suh.
Exactly.
Right? He was in Detroit, and he's like, nope, I'm going to sign this mega deal in Miami with no taxes, and then I'm going to just chill. Take it easy for 3 or 4 years, and then Suh jumped around from team to team for so long.
To Super Bowl contender to Super Bowl contender, and he got his ring. But yeah, it wouldn't fly with Dan Campbell. When people were talking about signing him, like the last couple of years during free agency, I was like, there's no way that Dan Campbell's going to take someone like him on.
Yeah, doesn't mesh well with the locker room.
You want to talk about free agents that are out there now, or do you want to talk about this NFC North thing that we got written down here?
Let's just go over the numbers for the NFC North at least real quick. We don't have to go too far into depth about who they've signed or anything like that, but it's interesting to see. So the Vikings have spent $245 million this free agency, which is most in the league. The Packers have spent $148 million, which is 9th, and then the Bears $140 million, which is 11th. And then you have the Lions, who've spent $84 million, which is all the way down 23rd. We spent $84 million, and the Vikings spent $245. And, for a while there, it was just like, every day or sometimes multiple times a day. The Vikings did this. The Vikings did that. The Vikings are doing this. The Vikings are trading. And obviously, the Vikings had a good team last year. So on the surface, I guess this will be one of the first tests, like, does this really matter? Because they obviously feel like they're on the cusp of it. They're going all in this year. They got $32 million cap space left for this year. They're right now $9.1 million over the cap for next year.
What?
They're putting all their eggs in this basket, and I mean, it looks like are they relying on JJ McCarthy's recovery and everything, or are they gonna swoop in and try to get Aaron Rodgers and complete the whole Brett Favre
career cycle? Yeah.
I don't know what you're gonna call it, resurrection. Yeah,
it's fine. I just don't want him in this division at the Aaron Rodgers twice. Because even if he's not playing and JJ's playing, you're still going to have to hear him talk. And I just don't want to hear him talk. So
listen, I want Aaron Rodgers in Minnesota because that's the cancer that we need to just tear them apart.
From that angle, I like where your mind's at, Jacob. That is good.
They're on the cusp, right? And we know what JJ McCarthy is capable of for being in Michigan. So, I mean, they're set up pretty nicely as of right now. I need Aaron Rodgers to come to Minnesota and just tear everything apart and make it about himself.
I like it.
That would be great.
I can get on board with that.
Which, I mean, if you're the Vikings, you spent how much right now? Obviously we don't. This is not a Vikings podcast. I don't know how JJ McCarthy is doing injury-wise, recovery. I don't know what that timeline looks like or anything like that. So they've got to be looking, and Aaron Rodgers is still not signed anywhere. So come to Minnesota and tear them apart.
Well, I gotta imagine that JJ's doing well. Like, they got to feel confident because they didn't go out and get a quarterback, right? I think that he must be doing good. I do not want to root for JJ McCarthy, but you look at the Vikings and the Bears, they could spend all this money because they got those rookie quarterback contracts. They got that for like 3 more seasons, so they could spend that money. But eventually they're gonna, they better start drafting better, or else they're gonna be an all all sorts of cap hell because, you know, let's look at the Lions. You know, we have 52 million left in cap space this year. If you're wondering like how much we're going to have to spend on our draft picks, they over the cap estimates 8.6 million to based on where we're drafting. The draft slots are pretty much predetermined, like how much the player's gonna get paid. Now those could change because we could trade picks, we could move up, we could move down, but it's estimating about 8.6 million in to sign our draft picks. And next year, right now, the way we got everything signed, we have 22 million in cap space. We got, Kirby and Aiden are up for, extension. So that's going to, depending on how they sign them, how they structure those contracts, we're going to have to figure out how to spend that. But that's good to have 52 million in space right now because that'll push it forward, right? That'll, that whatever we don't spend this year will get pushed forward. And I think that's one of the things that the Lions are doing is, thinking ahead, right? Because they're going to, when you think about last year, we needed about 20 million in cap space during the season to sign all the players for injuries that we had. So you have to carry some of that space. So you look at a team like the Bears right now for this season have 16 million in cap space, and over the cap says they need about 11.4 million to sign their draft picks, which would only leave them about 5 million left. So they're going to have to make some. They're going to have to restructure. They're going to have to cut some players, somehow to create some space because they're not going to go into the season with only 5 million in cap space. I just don't see that happening.
No, they're probably going to have to restructure. I think DJ Moore is the one with the big cap hit this year.
They can always add a void year. There's a lot of things they can manipulate, but that's pushing money ahead, and then it's going to affect their future cap space. If you look at a team like the Packers traditionally do not go out and spend a lot in free agency. This year they've spent the ninth most, which was interesting. So they have 31 million this year, and they got 25 million next year. So we'll see how the Packers go, but they still haven't got wide receiver help. I thought for sure they'd go out and get a wide receiver, but Amari Cooper and Diggs are out there. We could see if any of those land in Green Bay. I was just glad Devontae Adams did not end in Green Bay.
Yeah, I think that Diggs is probably holding out for money.
I think Amari Cooper is too.
I could see Cooper sliding in there.
Amari Cooper is too, or else he'd be signed. I'm sure he wants to get, because he's probably, I think on most websites lists like PFF, NFL, ESPN, he's probably the highest ranked free agent that's left on the market. And that to me, the only reason that he's there is either he wants to go to a specific team or he wants to get paid. He wants to get paid a certain amount, and they haven't a
specific dollar
amount yet. So, and then when you get to this part of free agency, the offers start to dwindle up, especially when you start getting into the draft, and teams are like, I'll just fill this hole with a draft pick. So, are you worried about any of it? Are you worried that the Vikings spent that much in free agency and that they were neck and neck with us all year? Does that scare you at all?
No. I do think that the Vikings and Bears both got better. I'm not sure about the Packers spending and if I think the Packers necessarily got better, but I think that the Bears and Vikings definitely both got better.
Yeah, I agree. I just I know we went 15-2. I know, the Vikings were 14-3 and they added all these pieces, but I'm not as worried about it. I don't think the Vikings are going to repeat their record last year, and part of it's hoping, but I also just don't.
Right.
I can't imagine having to go 15-2 to win your division again. I just don't see that happening again.
Right. That's a gauntlet.
Well, it also.
But I mean, the hope is that we're building the rosters. Same, for us, the Vikings. I mean, any team in the division really. We all have good enough teams that if you are a wild card team, if you do have to sneak it in that way, you could still win the Super Bowl just getting your foot in the door.
Yes, I agree. I think it's a matter of, it's about getting in the tournament. Dan Campbell said that many times. It's about getting in and then peaking at the right time during the year. We certainly weren't peaking at the right time of the year last year. We didn't have enough horses in the barn. Our defense was just hurt.
Not enough horses in the barn. There it is.
Man.
Jason's old man quote of the day.
Get off my lawn. No, I knew you'd like that. I knew you'd comment on that. So, we'll see how it goes. I don't like seeing other teams in our division spending all that money, but also I do like seeing that the Vikings are already like 10 million over in the cap, and that's even with having a rookie quarterback contract. It tells me
That's hard to believe, right?
I know that just means you're gonna. I mean, I never want to say the cap's not real. There's ways to manipulate the cap in the sense of like doing void years, but you end up if you do that and you start pushing things forward, it all catches up to you. You look at a team like the Saints, they're just stuck in this proverbial place where, they have to restructure contracts, trade away Marshawn Lattimore. Now they got Derek Carr and they're stuck and they got to, extend and add void years to like lessen out this cap. And then basically, instead of just like really going in the tank for like 2 years and, just paying all your debts, they want to be like in this mediocre place. And to me, that's a terrible place to be. I'd rather be either bottom or like on the rise. And if you're just stuck in this place where you're middle of your division, especially the division that like the Saints are in, it's not a great division. You should,
it should be winnable.
it should be winnable. You take a couple of years and then you just go on. But, they just hired a new coach, Kellen Moore. How much leeway is he going to get? He's not going to want to go in there and tank for 2 years on his first, 2 seasons. He could go in there and get fired after 2 years if you don't win. That's why that would have been a tough place to go and coach.
Yeah,
just
right.
that
it's a hard sell.
And we'll see. But I don't know. I'm not overly worried. I don't like the fact that Vikings did get all that fresh, fresh new faces and spend all that money.
I mean, they were good last year. They got better, right? So that's that they're going to be a tough team to beat. It's a tough division.
You got to count on.
We've got a good team too. You
got to count on JJ Metro what Sam did last year. I know Sam ended the year poorly, but his numbers were really good, and they won a lot of games with Sam. But Sam was pretty much taking care of the ball pretty well last year, and you're going to ask a rookie quarterback to go out there. I just imagine that JJ is going to make more mistakes than Sam did. So those mistakes could cost games.
Right.
I know that JJ looked pretty good. JJ McCarthy looked pretty good in the offseason, but it's one thing to get into the regular season. I know he's got the safety blanket. Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson are nice wide receivers to throw to, but I just feel that he's going to make some mistakes. The Lions will put them in a position to make some mistakes. So I like phase, they signed all this, but they're banking on, I know it's his second year, but essentially his rookie year on the field. That's going to be tough for him.
Right. I mean, you got a whole extra year to learn the offense with no pressure. So that's good, for them, but you're right. Rookie mistakes are going to happen.
All right.
And in this division and these type of games that, those are the difference makers.
Definitely. Could come down to the last game of the year again. Let's hope not. Let's move on here. Let's talk about the Lions still have some free agents out here. Jacob, I want to ask you, I'm going to quickly just list the players that are Lions free agents, and you tell me if you're interested in bringing any of these players back. So we got Teddy Bridgewater, running back Jamar Jefferson. We got Shane Zylstra, Allen Robinson, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Awasika. We got Al-Quadin Muhammad, John Kaminsky, Pat O'Connor, Kyle Pecco, Ben Neiman, Khalil Dorsey, or Emmanuel Mosley. Any of those guys you're interested in bringing back?
That's tough. I just think that, we've seen what we're going to see out of Donovan Peoples-Jones, Al-Quadin Muhammad, Kaminsky. They were okay in the small parts where they had to be in. Obviously, Kaminsky got hurt last year, so maybe he gets another chance this year. I think Jamar Jefferson's probably ready to move on. Teddy Bridgewater, if he comes back, is probably going to be like it was last year where he signs at the end of the season again. Shane Zylstra, I kind of would have thought we would have wanted him back. So it's interesting that he's not already, had something worked out, and then we signed a different tight end who was like a special teamer. So, I mean, looking at all these names, there's nobody jumping out that's like, man, we have to have him back. I would like to get Khalil Dorsey back, especially losing Vildor. Dorsey, really valuable on special teams. Emmanuel Mosley, he just could never get healthy here. So that's another thing. It's like, do we want to do this again for a third year in a row? Kyle Pecco actually showed flashes. He looked okay. I guess it's, like anything else, is the price going to be right? Are they going to be searching for any sort of guarantees or anything like that? Because these are potential camp bodies also, too. Let them come back. Let's see what they have. Compete for a roster spot. There's nobody here on this list, I guess probably outside of Dorsey, just because of special teams. I don't think there's anybody on this list that's threatening for significant playing time. Right? I mean,
I don't see anybody.
What do you-
I think I'd like to bring Pat O'Connor back just for depth piece. I mean, I don't.
he had the
did,
grit.
and I think that he fit well. I mean, I know Dan Campbell really mentioned him many times playing out there, but he's a guy that you could put on the practice squad and bring up in an injury situation. It's probably not. Teams aren't going to be looking to pick him off, but we know what type of player he is. I know he had the injury at late last year, so I don't know. If that has anything to do with this. But if he's healthy and could come in training camp and then we sign him to the practice squad, I'd be about that. I'm with you. Khalil Dorsey would be nice. Great on special teams. Unfortunately, he broke his leg, but we need depth at cornerback, so we could see it from there. Emmanuel Mosley, I don't know. Even when he was like,
You'll like him, but it's, we've seen nothing out of him.
Well, I mean, and he was healthy scratch towards the end of the year, just inactive on game days, even when he was like healthy enough to be on the field. So did he need another year to recuperate? Like, would he be better physically next year? The Lions obviously have just, he's out there. So we've offered him, told him we could bring him back, and he's out there trying to find something else, or the Lions have just said, we give you enough chances, we're going to move on. I don't think Allen Robinson or Donovan Peoples-Jones will be coming back. I see saying we do need some tight end help, so Zylstra would be an option. He was on our practice squad last year, so there's probably not, obviously he hasn't signed. There's probably not a big demand for him, so they're probably just see what he can come up with, and we might just sign him, in the later on in the offseason.
That's what I was going to say about O'Connor, too, is I don't, his market's not really going to be very big. So, I mean, there's a chance bring him on before camp, and then we'll see what we have.
Yeah, this might be an after the draft, see what we got, see what roster, what we need on the roster. And then these guys will, most likely still be out there. And if they're not.
I mean, we do know how much we like the undrafted free agents, though, and bringing people in here and trying to find the diamond in the rough, see what we have. So you also got to think about them taking a roster spot away from one of those guys.
We always, the Lions always have an undrafted guy on the roster, no matter how many draft picks we have, how many, guys that we bring back year to year. We always have an undrafted guy make this roster. Is there any free agents outside of the Lions that first, let's start with the position. I mean, is there, what position are you looking at? And at that position, what player are you interested in?
There's nobody that I have really circled. And it's really just one of those things like, yeah, if we can bring an edge person in here, but you look at the salary and all the numbers and everything of what it costs to get one here versus the guys that are out there. It's, I really don't want Von Miller to come in and just play on third downs and cost us $15 million a year. I don't want that. I don't think we need that. I don't see that happening. There's a couple cornerbacks that were released. Arthur Millette from Baltimore, Chidobe Awuzie from Tennessee. Those are lower level corners that might slot in that I think would be upgrade over what Vildor was, depending on the dollar amounts. I would say there's not anybody that I'm circling like, I hope we get this guy. Is there somebody that you had in mind, or what position are you looking at? Are you looking at like guard to replace Zeitler?
Guard is what I'm looking at. And it's not necessarily to replace Zeitler, because I think that might be just Mahogany's job, but it's mostly just we need another starting level guard that in case there's an injury to Graham or to push Graham. Graham didn't have a great year last year, and we don't know, are they going to move Graham back to the right side, put Mahogany in on the left, or are they going to just put Mahogany in to replace Zeitler? I'm not sure. Either way, I think whoever moves to the right is going to look better than they did. Like Graham, I think will look better because, 2 years ago, he had a pretty decent year. Was that because he's playing between Frank and Panay? Every guard in that right guard spot's going to look good. I'm not saying Zeitler looked good because he was there. Zeitler's a really good football player, but I think anybody that gets slotted in there is going to get some help from those guys. You look at a guy like Brandon Scherf from Jacksonville, Will Hernandez are the probably two. He's a guard out of Arizona. Those are the two guys that I've read about that I would probably be interested in. Starting material. Their starting material. It'd be good to have a swing guy in there. And then, with Graham, if Frank got hurt, then Graham can move over, and then we're going to have a guard to replace it. So I really would like, and more guard help. Now we could also draft a guy too, right? We got that first round pick.
That's what I was going to say. Would you rather have a veteran though, or would you rather have, if there's one there in the first round, which I imagine there will be with where we're drafting, there's going to be somebody there.
He could start. He could come in and start. If maybe not week 1, depending on the talent, he might start week 1, but he could be ready to step in and play. So, those guys are out there, but unless the price comes down, they might be waiting until after the draft. And some of these guys, will probably be signing. As far as edge player, the player that I kind of am most interested in is Preston Smith. And I think that he's like that bully type guy that I want on the edge, kind of like how we envisioned Davenport to just crush that side of the pocket. I don't know what Preston Smith would sign for, but if I was going to go out there, that's the edge guy that I'm interested in. Would you be interested in bringing Za'Darius Smith back if that's an option? I don't know if it's going to be an option, but would you be interested in bringing him back?
I would be open to bringing him back at a discounted rate.
I don't
know. He would be open to that.
Goodbye. He said goodbye.
Right. Did we talk to him already about restructuring before we decided that we were just going to cut? Maybe. You don't know how that conversation went, but yeah, when you post your goodbyes like that, Kyle Juszczyk for the 49ers, the 49ers cut him. He made one visit and then he signed right back to the 49ers for half as much as he was going to make.
Yeah. I think you and I talked.
Za'Darius quickly thanked Detroit minutes after that was announced.
I'm sure that the Lions came up with a contract and said, this is what we'd like to do. We're going to restructure that. And he's like, nope, I want all my money. And, he's going to try to get it, but he still hasn't signed. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I think, there's still some good edge players out there that you could sign. I'm with you. I don't want to pay Von Miller what he's probably going to get on this open market. And he doesn't really fit what the Lions do. He's a huge name, and yes, he would probably be able to get after the quarterback, but the Lions don't really work like that. They like players that are versatile, that can play all 3 downs, that could stop the run, that do all the things, and that's not necessarily Von Miller's game anymore.
Right, no. And I mean, honestly, I think it's crazy that teams are paying him $15-20 million just to play a few snaps a game, whatever.
Well,
but looking at the top edge people that are left right there, there's just nobody that piques my interest very much. That's
Well, a name that's on there that was everybody wanted last year was Matthew Judon, right? He's available, and he didn't have a great season with Atlanta.
That was also wasn't he traded?
Traded to Atlanta, so he was openly on a trade.
They wanted him for a trade, right? They wanted him for the trade because that would have been how Za'Darius was, for the rest of the year, and then you move on.
So, but he's still out there. So, I think we get some of these guys will sign, but a lot of these guys are probably going to be waiting until after the draft to sign. The teams are going to see what they got and then go from there. All right, Jacob. We could talk about. Let's talk. We got to talk about the Bengals, right? And these, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Can you? We're kind of looking at this situation, right? We're going to have JMO up for a contract, right? So you kind of almost, they're not going to line up with sign him in the same offseason, but this is what it's going to be like if you sign JMO and Amon-Ra. The amount, it's going to be close to that amount of money. Number one, do you think that it's smart to have T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, 100? Was it what they signed?
T. Higgins 4 years, $115 million. Jamar's 4 years, $161. But I'm pretty sure that was just because Jamar wanted to be the highest paid non-quarterback.
Yeah, he edged out.
I 100% think Jamar talked to his agent and said, this is it Myles Garrett or who was the highest non-paid or highest non-quarterback
right now for $40 million because he outpaced Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, so that was Jamar's bar. He said, I want to be paid more than this guy. So the 4-year, 161 million, 112 guaranteed for Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase, obviously a great receiver. Joe Burrow, wanted him and T. Higgins to be signed. He got his wish, and now they're on the hook for a whole lot of money. And the offense looks great. The defense is not getting any help.
Trey Hendrickson wants out.
Maybe they'll be able to work something with Hendrickson. I don't know how much money they have left to even do that now. I don't know. I mean, it's interesting when you put that into perspective. Like, Amon-Ra signed a 4-year, $120 million extension last year. And then J-Mo has a contract extension going to be coming up. I just don't think you can pay him that much money. I don't think it's smart to have two receivers making that much. And then, where's that money coming from? What pot are we taking that out of? Are we not going to pay our line as much because we're trying to pay our wide receivers more? I think that's when you look towards rookie help, right?
Yeah.
Which we already talked about this. It's going to be a very difficult decision, deciding to let J-Mo walk or what we're going to do with him. So maybe they can work something out, but I don't think this is going to work out well for the Bengals.
I just can't see paying T. Higgins that much money. I mean, Jamar Chase, yes. Pay him that money. He's good. I think the Bengals screwed themselves over by not signing him last year. Could have got him for cheaper. And now they always push things to the end. They're not a very good run organization. We kind of know something about that being Lions fans. We've seen it before, the Ndamukong Suh thing, where we kept franchising him and just screwing ourselves over. I guess I didn't realize they have the same agent, right? T. Higgins and Jamar Chase have the same agent.
That's why they basically signed or announced the signing at the same exact time.
Right. So, you hope that didn't hold them over head. We're like, well, we're not signing. If you don't sign them both, you're not, Jamar's not going to sign or whatever, then they would have just franchised Chase and that, at next year or whatever, then that would have created a whole big issue, I'm sure. But I would not have paid T. Higgins as much as they're paying T. Higgins. I just wouldn't.
I mean, he's a good receiver, but that's wide receiver 1 money, right? You're paying him wide receiver 1 money to be the wide receiver 2. And yeah, they both had pretty good numbers last year, but I mean, the Bengals were 9-8 last year. And they had no defense, so they had to score a lot. They had a lot of high-scoring games. It's not sustainable to do that. I mean, Jamar Chase probably, I don't have his numbers in front of me, but I know he went off last year. 127 catches, 1,700 yards, 17 touchdowns. That's probably going to be his career year. I don't think he's going to touch those numbers again.
We'll see. They're going to be playing from behind an awful lot, and they're going to be throwing up the ball an awful lot.
But what's interesting is I do think that Jamar Chase is the type of person that just got that bag, and I think that he would be the type of person that kind of starts to take some plays off and starts to, you don't want to mess up his face.
Yeah, like he could be. I don't know him well enough to know whether
ever since he refused to take a picture with that guy with the Amon-Ra jersey on. There's been a couple different things, but that one really sticks with me. It's like, come on, man.
I know that shaded your whole perception of him.
Right.
It's like, yeah, what kind of person does that?
There was also a thing where he was trying to get Burrow to say that he was better than Justin Jefferson. There's just been a couple different things that have stuck with me. It's like, absolutely a great receiver, but
yeah, I agree. It's kind of, I like people that let their play talk for them and not their mouth.
Right.
I tend to relate more with those players than the other way. Would I like Jamar Chase? Yes. Am I happy with Penei Sewell, who we got in the draft? Yes.
Yeah, right.
Everything I'd want in a first round pick. So I'm glad that we got Penei Sewell. I think Jamar Chase deserved his money. I would not have given in to T. Higgins. I would have let him walk and then try to get something on your defense or something to protect Joe Burrow, because it seems like Joe Burrow is getting hurt all the time because he's constantly getting sacked.
Right. Yeah, that's just, that's wild.
Yeah. All right. before we wrap up here, you wanted to talk a little bit about the Niners, like interesting like stat about the 49ers spending and free agents.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up just because it was really interesting that so the 49ers have the biggest deficit in free agency spending in NFL history this year. So what that means, teams have spent $321 million on 49ers free agents, while the Niners have only spent $37 million. So that's a deficit of $284 million, which is the highest in NFL history. So the 49ers, very competitive for a while, and now it looks like they're going downhill, right? Debo left, guard Aaron Banks, Javon Hargrave, Malik Collins, Leonard Floyd, Drake Greenlaw, Javarius Ward, Talanoa Ofanga. And on top of all the people leaving, you're going to have to pay Brock Purdy, or you're going to have to do something with Brock Purdy. So
this is what the Bears and the Vikings have in their future, right?
Yeah, right.
Like that quarterback needs to get paid, and that's a sizable chunk of your cap space there. So, I mean, all that stuff they're doing is we're going to see what Brock Purdy's made of, right? And what everyone has feared for him or, suspected or put on him is Brock Purdy a good quarterback, or is he just a product of the situation that he's in? And losing Debo, Brandon Ayuk there's been talk about him wanting out or whatever, and he was off the injury list, whether he's going to come back. It'll be interesting, how he performs without all these weapons that he has.
I don't think this is going to end well.
Yeah.
But, just to kind of switch this around and make it a little bit more about the Lions. So I was looking at the deficit and everything. So the Lions actually did lead the league in the free agency spending deficit. So that was back in 2015. Can you guess who their top free agent was that left?
Well, isn't that the Sue?
Exactly.
That's the Sue year, right? Yeah.
I was shocked to see that we actually led, just trying to think, okay, what free agents have we had that have gotten huge paydays? And that's really it. That year, the free agents that left were Ndamukong Suh, Jed Collins, Nick Fairley, Reggie Bush. That's it. And that was like the leading deficit because the people that we signed did not. Let's see.
Well, the Lions haven't drafted well enough to be able to have like an exodus like that, to have enough people to, deserve those contracts. And the people that the Lions signed for the longest time were on their third contract, and they weren't in the league after they left the Lions. They were coming to the Lions for that last payday. Yeah. That's how it was for the Lions for the longest time. And we're luckily out of that stage right now. And we're able to get, a player of DJ Reed's caliber. It is his third contract, but he's had to fight for that, and he's still a young player. So it's not like we're getting a washed up DJ Reed. We're getting a guy entering his prime, and I'm happy with that. But yeah, it's nice to be out of that stage.
Let me real quick read you the free agents that we signed that year. I told you who we lost. These are the people that we got. We signed defensive end Philip Hunt. I want you to tell me if you remember these guys or not, too.
No, I don't.
Yeah. Defensive end Tyron Walker.
I remember him.
Cornerback Josh Wilson.
I remember him on the field, but I don't remember too much about him.
Let's see here. Linebacker Brandon Copeland.
God.
Most of these end up being draft picks, so I'm trying to go through. We signed wide receiver Lance Moore.
Oh, yeah.
Toledo.
Well, he's from Toledo.
Right.
Yep.
Wide receiver, let's see who this is. Greg Salas. Tight end David Osbury from the Raiders. I actually remember that name. And safety Taylor Mays from the Vikings. Man. What a free agency class that was for us.
Wow. Just lining it up. Man,
and we
only had a podcast back then.
So we went 11-5 the year before. That was when we lost that playoff game to the Cowboys. Sue leaves, and we go through this deficit, and then 7-9.
Yeah. We had a really good defense, but then we, Sue left. Poor cap management. I know, and also part of it was also during that time period. I think that was Mayhew. We had
Mayhew was fired.
All the rookie, there wasn't like a rookie cap at that time. So like everybody that was drafted, like especially where the Lions were drafting in the top 5, top 10, they were all getting like almost paid the highest of their position. So
wow.
if you drafted a quarterback like Stafford, was like one of the highest paid quarterbacks at the time because, each first overall pick was guarded, you had to be paid more than last year's first round overall pick. And so it was like a lot of that. And then, when they're going their second contract, they're going to want to get paid more than their rookie contract. And so it was just like all that compounded. And the cap wasn't going up nearly as much as it is year after year now.
Right.
But, it's always Lions, wrong place, wrong time. That's just the way it was for long. We would get good players, Kelvin Johnson, Ndamukong Suh, but then we'd be paying them so much that we couldn't afford to have anybody else around him, or we weren't drafting well enough in rounds 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Right. That was a big thing. We couldn't fill in the other pieces with quality players like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we'd also draft like Mike Williams, first round, Brandon Pettigrew, who is a decent tight end, but not worthy of a first round pick, and just all those type of constant mistakes and go for the shiny object instead of getting the offensive line and, building in the trenches like that, Brad Holmes seems to do a very good job of.
We're in a much better place now.
Yes, we are. We're in a safe place. Yeah. You can talk about your feelings here. All right, man. Before we head out of here, March Madness is this week, right? What's your plan on Thursday with March Madness?
I actually took Thursday off, so I'll be watching basketball.
Nice.
I took it off because cool. JJ has a band concert, but it just worked out. I've never had it off. Well, not never, but it's probably been like 10 years since I've taken it off because we always do the brackets and everything at work. Mm-hmm. And this is one of the few times where I'm allowed to have basketball on in the back. And I can announce the stat, like I can announce who's winning, and then everyone pretends like they care just because of their brackets.
Yeah,
that was all I had before you came along. Let's March Madness.
I was just gonna bring that up. Like before I came to town, that was the only time anybody else in the pharmacy was interested in sports.
Right. They originally just did it because they felt bad for me, and then now there's money involved. So
yeah. Money will pique people's interest, that's for sure.
Right. Everyone likes to see how their bracket's doing. It's fun.
Yeah. Any team that you're like, I don't follow college basketball enough to know, like, I follow Michigan enough, but I don't follow outside of that until March Madness time. Is there any sleeper team that you're interested in? Or
it's funny that you mentioned that because I did have a sleeper team that I had circled. I was like, these guys are going to be trouble because they were a Division II. They have like a waiting period before they're even eligible. Like they were playing Division I, but they're not eligible for the tournament. They were eligible for the tournament the first time this year. Really good team on defense. They went 30-4. They are, it was just somebody that was circled. I was like, these guys, I actually wanted to put them like the Elite 8. And then the brackets come out and they play Michigan the first round.
Oh, was it San Diego?
So State? UC San Diego. Yeah. This is their first tournament. It's like the story writes itself. They're 30-4. I mean, they, it's got upset written all over it. Michigan 2.5-point favorites. And so now I'm nervous. And it's they gave Michigan the 5 seed, which is they kind of snubbed them with the seed. But historically, 12 seeds beat 5 seeds, pretty frequently. That's one of those things. So this one looks ugly. So now I have the conflict, I usually make multiple brackets so that I can pick one where Michigan goes to like the Final Four, and then I feel good about myself, like I didn't jinx them if they lose. And then I make another one where I try to be more realistic as if I wasn't a fan.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Are you making a bracket with us or what?
Yeah, I'll probably make a bracket. I got Wednesday off, so I'll be able to do that. Are you printing them out, or are we doing them online, or how
they were printed out? They're printed out in the back.
Okay.
I know you're just messing around all day and doing whatever. So you.
Oh yeah, no, there was no messing around today, my friend. You know how it was at work. I'll get mine and I'll take a picture of it and send it to you. I didn't realize they were in the back, so
send it to me by noon on Thursday.
If
a 16 seed beats a 1 and then you send me a picture of a bracket that says that you got it right, I'll know you're full of it.
Yeah. Well, you already know I'm full of it, but you'll have
that.
Proof.
We'll just confirm.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man. It was. I don't work with you until next week, just so you know. So I'm out in Ohio land the next few days.
They exiled you out to the Ohio.
They they did. Does Michigan play on Thursday or play on Friday? I haven't even
I
looked that
believe
far
it's
ahead.
Thursday night. Hang on one second. Yes, they play Thursday at 10 p.m.
All right. Oh, PM.
Yeah, it's one of the late games.
That sucks. That sucks for the boys. Because I was really hoping to get them into March Madness a lot this year, and that would have helped watching Michigan play.
Yeah. Well, let's hope we survive this first one, and then we'll talk.
Yeah, exactly. All right, man. We've been rambling on here about March Madness. Anything else before we take off here?
No, man.
All right. It's good talking football with you. Like I said, to everyone that's out there listening, we got some really good guests that we're excited about coming up here. Hopefully everything works out well. We'll kind of announce as we get closer, but keep on listening because we got some fun stuff coming up here. We're going to be transitioning into draft talk probably in the next couple weeks, and Jacob really gets into the draft, so we're going to lean on him heavily, and I'll just have a bunch of questions for him.
Hey, that's okay.
Yeah, no, it's good because I don't watch enough college football to during the season it's all Lions, and we'll see what Jacob has to say.
All right.
All right, I'm Jason. He's Jacob. And as always, go Lions.